last time. One last time.
Bad Boys for Life is the long-awaited third installment of the franchise. It's been 9 long years since Big Mama's House 3, and Martin Lawrence decides that he wants to act again. So after doing The Beach Bum, he joins his old friend Will Smith, who's become a famous YouTuber during that time.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
And they go about wreaking merry havoc across the unsuspecting public. But it's okay, they could get away with it. They're cops.
It's cool. They're cops.
They're cops.
They're cops. They're cops.
They're cops.
Cops!
Now initially, I wasn't all that interested in seeing this. I never saw the other two, mostly because I'm not really a Michael Bay fan. But recently I decided to watch them because they were on Netflix, and I surprisingly had fun. The first one had a fairly stock police caper plot with wacky misunderstandings and shenanigans, but it was brought up due to Bay's slick direction, back when he cared about what he was doing, and the genuinely charismatic performances of Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, who carried the film on their shoulders and had some genuinely hilarious lines.
Put the gun down and give me a pack of tropical fruit bubblicious. And some Skittles.
So I'd say maybe give it a watch, 5 or 6 out of 10. The second film is an interesting beast on its own for being one of the most hateful, spiteful, elitist, least heroic, least humane buddy cop action movie you could possibly make. There are scenes in which our heroes drive their Hummers through a shanty town cause fuck the poor. In another scene where Martin Lawrence meets the boy who's gonna date his daughter, so he and Smith threaten him in a way that's more fucked up than funny. Like, my god, this poor boy.
You ever made love to a man?
No. You want to?
No, sir.
Hey, have a good time, baby.
As Roger Ebert said in his review, everybody involved in this project needs to do some community service. Yet despite all that, it's still a ton of fun, debatably more so than the first. I mean, I can't in good conscience turn my back on a scene like this.
This is a nice fish, you know? Big fucking eyes, but a nice fucking fish.
So check that out as well, 4 out of 10. So now I had expectations. I went out of my way to see it, and I was surprisingly kinda let down. The first notable thing is that Bay wasn't on board to direct. He was the cameo though, but now the main duties are handed over to some new blood. A duo of Belgian directors.
I have no idea what their names are.
And in terms of their direction, it's kinda whatever. It feels as if they're trying to imitate Bay, mostly by shooting things in a lot of angles or quick motions, but there's no real style to it. It doesn't really have any energy. There's a good video made by Every Frame of Painting that really dives into what separates Bay from his imitators in regards to scale and camera movement and all that, but the point is, this didn't really feel as junkily engaging as it should have. Now the story itself, okay, it's kind of unfair to discuss the story of a Bad Boys movie, because they're not about that. They're about these two dude bros causing damage wherever they go. Or at least the second one's more like that. And there is some of that, but there's just some of that. They're surprisingly kind of separated throughout parts of this movie, although they're arguably together just as equally. But now we have to make room for a younger team they don't want to work with but have to. And there's a love interest to Will Smith, who he has a long history with, but we as an audience were just introduced to her, and were given no real information on their history other than they like each other, I guess. My biggest problem may be that I think it takes itself too seriously. People seem to eat it up though, but I just kind of prefer the nihilistic energy of the others than this serious revenge storyline that makes it feel far more generic than it already is. It also does that thing that sequels do that I'm not a fan of, where the main character has a secret past that's suddenly revealed, and it doesn't feel natural at all. It feels sort of like the writer is pulling something out of their ass. I don't know, it's just kind of bored by this. It still has its moments that are entertaining, or where they say a good line, and it's also nice to see Joe Pantoliano again. But it otherwise feels lacking, I guess. But again, coming from me, people seem to really enjoy it, so what am I to judge? 3, maybe 4 out of 10. Wasn't feeling it.
Would you like the rain to stop?
What do you mean by?
It's gonna clear up.
Weathering with You is a new Animu movie by Mikado Shinkai, the director of Your Name, and a lot of other stuff with similar themes of adolescent romance, pop music, trains apparently, and some of the most gorgeous scenery you'll ever see, especially in theaters. I'm obviously not an expert on this guy's career. Your Name really was the only other thing I've seen of his. And it's been something like 2 years since I saw it, but I remembered liking it then. But now it's weather time. It's about this teenager who's a runaway that goes to Tokyo looking for work. It takes him a while, but he eventually ends up as a pseudo-writer at an amateur tabloid business, which leads him to discover a girl who can control the weather. He makes a business pact with the girl to bring sunshine in select areas, as Japan's been unusually rainy as of late. But maybe sparks would fly! So I didn't really have a lot of expectations going into this, but I ended up enjoying it. It's a relatively cute, pseudo-pretentious, but not in an annoying way, love story with some insanely pretty visuals as expected. If there are 3 things this director excels at, it's a sense of environment and scale, the shading on characters, and water movement. Like, look at the rain. It's all hand animated, but I feel like I could get wet by it. The main love story works as you understand the connection both protagonists have with each other, as well as having believable motivations and goals. But my favorite part of the movie actually has to do with the adult characters who take the lead kid under their wing. It could be that I usually find middle-aged adult problems more interesting than teen romance number 558, but they were genuinely compelling with a lot of issues they had to deal with. Which is another aspect I really liked about this, was how uncompromising the world of this movie could get. Nobody has it easy in this. There's a lot of really scummy people and places. It's never easy to get a job. The weather's all fucked. I respect how they made the world in this tough to live in, like how it actually is. There are certainly some cheesy elements that I likewise noticed in Your Name, such as its use of pop songs in the soundtrack, or characters often doing the thing where they'll state the obvious, like when someone's gone they'll go, "She's gone," or something like that, because it happens pretty often. I also wish they elaborated on the boy's backstory a little more. Otherwise, the one thing that might be the biggest source of contention among people would be its ending. I'm not going to give anything away, but you basically have to look at it from 2 different perspectives. On one hand, it's technically a happy enough love conquers all message to it, but on the other, everything is awful. If you see it, you'll understand. It's sort of ballsy that they made the protagonist even do that, but at least I could see the director's intention, as sometimes people behave in a way that might feel right, where in actuality, no. So basically, check it out when you have the chance. I think it's still playing somewhere. They've had an unusually wide release for G-Kids, though it might be gone now. But check it out, 7 out of 10.
Then everything just blew up.
Color Out of Space is the new excuse to watch Nicolas Cage freak out. Based off a short story by H.P. Lovecraft, it's about a family living on a farm who one day come across a strange comet from outer space that begins to affect their sanity one by one. It was made by the same company that brought us Mandy, but as far as I know, none of the crew from that was involved in this one, though I could be wrong, I don't know. Although I never read the short story, it seems to be a bit of a strange one to adapt, as the titular color is supposed to be somewhat indescribable, yet is visually portrayed here as a purple-pink color, even though characters find it difficult to define. I guess that's more of a decision the filmmakers employed, but it's still sort of a weird one. Anyway, I thought this was pretty good. It moves in more of a slower pace than a lot of junky horror B-movies do, and it sort of works to its advantage. What I like best about it is its atmosphere. I've always been a fan of stuff like Hereditary, where the idea of something horrible happening to you or your family while in your own home is really terrifying to me, and this gives off that feeling pretty well. While Nick Cage is fun as always, the other performances are a bit more of a mixed bag. The acting on the teenagers were sort of shaky, but the young kid actually did a surprisingly good job. I felt like I would have liked the film better if the characters were a little more fleshed out, because they sort of feel fairly archetypical, like the son is a pothead, or the girl is kinda goth and into witchcraft, or Tommy Chung plays a crazy hermit. The visual effects were also a little strange, as some looked fairly okay while others needed more time in the oven, possibly due to budget. The practical effects looked alright, although I felt they could have done a better job of Cage's arm makeup. If I were to compare it to Mandy, I'd say it felt a little less slow than that one did. But when Mandy had highs, it had major highs, while this was just consistently intriguing. It never really exceeded any expectations, but it did keep my interest enough to stay the whole duration. Not like I would have left the theater anyway. I'd say check it out when you're in the mood for some slow Lovecraftian spookiness. 6 out of 10.
Bye.